So what did we just watch? Now, I have a video on my channel here where I predicted the St. Louis San Jose series. And a San Jose fan attacked me, and I believe it's an account name that seems familiar. He's argued with me before. I think it was because I picked the Kings to beat the Blues in the first round. I think he argued on that one too. Or Kings to beat the Sharks. My statement at the start of this series was it was going to be damn tough. It was hard to pick a winner. I've been wrong on the West for the most part. And I was taking St. Louis in 7 because I felt they were the superior team. After Game 3, comment after comment. The thing I don't understand is when your team, A, has never won a Stanley Cup, B, has never been in the final, C, has a recent history of choking away massive leads. I'm speaking of the 3-0 series lead over the Kings. You don't really have a position of strength. I look back at round 1. Ducks fans, how dare you pick the Preds to beat the Ducks? Again, Ducks, history of choking. And they choked it away. San Jose has a history of losing in the playoffs. And yes, either they or St. Louis will shed that image. Maybe they've already shed it with this year's run for both teams. Who knows? My point is this. St. Louis beat the crap out of San Jose in San Jose tonight. And I don't gloat. I haven't gloated the whole playoffs. Because, my predictions come out of just looking at the teams. And I still think St. Louis, in terms of depth, in terms of goaltending, in terms of the blue line, I just see them as a stronger team than San Jose. It doesn't mean that I think Hitchcock's a better coach than DeBoer, because I don't. I've honestly been surprised at how long Ken Hitchcock has lasted in St. Louis, comparatively speaking, with his relatively short honeymoon in other cities. Like Columbus, for example. Hitchcock's style of coaching works for a couple seasons, and then it breaks down. But for whatever reason in St. Louis, it's continued unlike it did in Dallas or Columbus. Good for him. St. Louis now has the next game at home. All they have to do is hold serve. If they win Game 5, they have a really good chance of winning the series, because then San Jose has to win at home, and then San Jose has to win on the road. And in both situations, the pressure is really on San Jose, because St. Louis right now is playing with house money, and they just won with Jake Allen. And I like Jake Allen. I prefer him as a goaltender over Brian Elliott, and tonight he reminded me why. He's aggressive, he's young, he's energetic, he takes chances. But man, he's fun to watch. Martin Jones was kind of screwed tonight. That fantastic behind-the-back acrobatic save, which led to Brent Burns kicking the puck right to Laterra, who put it in the empty net. I felt bad for Jones on that goal. I like Martin Jones. There are a lot of San Jose players I like, but the guys at the top I don't like. And San Jose generally the team I don't like. I used to. Mid-90s I liked them a lot when they had Pat Falloon, Ray Whitney, Artur Serbe. Urbe is one of my all-time favorite goaltenders. Archie didn't get a solid backing in Vancouver. They got rid of him because he was short, and they went with Garceau instead. And to this day, that is one absolutely befuddling move, unless you remember it's Mike Keenan that made the decision. Decided all goalies need to be tall. Not when they're like Urbe. But anyways, I'm not gloating, because I'm still saying St. Louis is lucky this series is tied. St. Louis is very lucky to have this series tied 2-2. Here's the problem. Luck doesn't mean shit in the playoffs. In the end, the lucky team is sometimes the team that wins the series. The better team can lose. I look back at some Canucks teams that weren't as good, that won. The best Vancouver Canucks team they ever had was the 91-92 Canucks, and that was the year before Bure got here. The year before, no. 91-92, was that the year before Bure, or was that Bure's first season? That was his first season. The season Bure arrived in the 30 games into. And the funny thing is, everybody remembers that Bure turned the Canucks around. He didn't. They actually were having a fantastic season and then just added Bure, which was unfair. But that team choked in the second round against the Kings. They choked against the Oilers in 92, and it was against the Kings in 93. And the funny thing was, they beat Winnipeg both times. And even though Vancouver was down 3-1 to Winnipeg at one point, I still went, it's the Jets. Jets will blow it. Canucks are still going to the second round. And they did. And it's one of those things. Certain teams, certain organizations, you look and you go, they're going to blow it. Because it's what they do. Just like with Blackhawks, Kings, teams like this, you go, you know what? They're probably going to come back because it's just in their nature. As LA did when they were down 3-0 against the Sharks a few years ago. And the Sharks' makeup in terms of who's on the team is still pretty much the same team as those guys that choked away those leads. Thus the reason that going into this series, I said, you know what? I like St. Louis. And I still like St. Louis. Going into tonight, I was nervous. I was like, you know what? If St. Louis loses tonight, they're out. And both of these series have been fantastic. Fantastic hockey. But I just sort of wonder with hockey fans and fans in general. I find it online with sports all the time. If my opinion is that your favorite team isn't going to win a round in the playoffs, doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean I don't like your team. In the Sharks' case, I don't. But they're from California, and the California teams, it's like going into the season, I knew Vancouver was going to miss the playoffs because they weren't as good as California. All three teams. So right away I was like, they are not making the playoffs. You'd have to look way back in my videos. It's probably one of the videos on my NHL playlist, actually, where I predict where teams are going to finish. I was wrong a lot. But I did predict California was going to run the table, and I predicted Calgary was going to fall back. And I took a lot of flack back then, too. I took a lot of flack. And when I said Montreal's just got Carey Price, they don't have anything else. Montreal fans, go nuts. I'm sorry, it's just, I make a statement, my opinion, my point of view, and people seem to take it as if I'm an affront to them or something. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. Because I don't watch videos of other people and say, oh, you don't think the Bruins are going to beat Montreal? Well, fuck you. I don't do that at all. I get upset when I watch Nick Kypreos a few years ago, and every time you turn around, he's shit-talking Luongo. And he's constantly, and the Canucks lose a game, and all you still at Luongo. The Canucks are not going anywhere with that Luongo. No. He's overrated. I just don't understand it. And it's like, of course you don't. You're in Toronto. They start playing games when you're in bed because you're old. And it drove me nuts. Because Luongo could have 3 or 4 really good games, and the moment he has a bad game, there'd be Kypreos. No. No, and no. Kipper drives me nuts for that. There's other Toronto TSN, Score, Sportsnet guys who drive me nuts for that too. Where either they omit the Canucks altogether from the conversation, or they omit certain players from the conversation of whether or not they're really good, like the Sedins out here. If the Sedins played in Toronto, if they played their whole careers in Toronto, I'm sorry, Toronto will be ready to erect statues in their honor, because these guys are fantastic. They give to the community, they give to charity all the time. They're great guys. I've never heard anything negative said about them at a bar or any kind. There's nothing out there. There's nothing. And most players, if you hang around with fans who live in the city where the guys play, you'll hear some stuff. You'll hear a lot of stuff. And that's the nature of gossip in sports. But when I watch, it's like when I watch an American feed. I watch NBC. And when you watch a game on NBC, they'll talk about the Blackhawks, the Rangers, the Kings, because those are your 3 big teams. They will ignore any team north of the 49th parallel. Any Canadian team is ignored. So they'll go, I'm looking at the standings, and you'll see, like, the Canucks first in the division, and they'll talk about the Kings under them, the Sharks, and the Ducks, and they'll talk, and it's like, who's first in the division? You guys are going to acknowledge that? And even up until, in 2011, 2012, these years when the Canucks were up at the top of the league, NBC wouldn't even acknowledge that they were in the conversation. And it drove me nuts. Absolutely insane that it was just American teams, American teams, American teams. We're not going to acknowledge the Canadian teams exist. It drove me nuts. That's what makes me angry. I don't get angry that somebody doesn't like the Canucks. I don't get angry that somebody doesn't like Boston. I don't get angry somebody doesn't like Dallas. I don't know why anybody wouldn't like Dallas, but I can imagine if you're a goalie coach, you wouldn't be happy right now in Dallas, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, so tonight, St. Louis wins. They win decisively. San Jose showed a lot of fight in the third period, like Pittsburgh did last night. But let's be honest, when you have to be down 4-0 to start showing fight, you probably got a problem since you got down 4-0 before you started showing some fight in the game. And St. Louis just pushed back against it, and I thought that was great. Brouwer, full value to Brouwer, Brodziak. These are the guys. These are the reason I took St. Louis in this series in 7. Because Brouwer is a beast. Brodziak is a guy who will float around, and then he will do this. He'll go on hot runs. Stastny is their third-line center. He's in the third line. I don't want to say center. I think isn't he a center? He's a center. One of my cats would have to know if I'm pretty sure he's a center. I'm a little, because I know I said something about Patrick Kane being a center, and somebody called me out on it. Rightfully so, he's a right winger. He was a center for 1 year of his career. He will center a line occasionally. He does take faceoffs. He's bad at faceoffs, which is probably why you don't want him at center. But, yeah. I still like St. Louis. Does it mean San Jose won't win? No. But I said this series was going 7 games, and right now, based on the play in this series, it's probably going 7 games. And I don't see what's wrong with that. I could see if I had said St. Louis in 4. San Jose sucks. They shouldn't even be here. They're lucky. No. I said St. Louis faced tougher opposition because they faced the Blackhawks. The team that the Sharks played in the first round, that Kings team, I don't know who they are, and I don't know who that Jonathan Quick is, but it's not the team that won the Cup a few years ago. That Jonathan Quick was a sieve, and Dustin Brown is gone. He is just, I don't know where all those millions of dollars are going, but that player that he was, the 25-goal scorer that could hit everything in sight, he's gone. And I don't know if it's injuries, I don't know if he's slowed down, I don't know what it is, but he's just gone. So for the Sharks to beat them, it's impressive, but it's not as impressive as St. Louis knocking out Kane, Taves, Crawford, Keith, Seabrook, Anisimov, Panarin. Like, this is a pretty damn good lineup, and the Blues knocked them out, and they knocked them out with some authority in Game 7. And then Dallas, 7-game series. And it's 7-game series after 7-game series. Like, St. Louis is just fighting their way through these series that would take the steam out of most teams. They're showing tremendous athletic ability in terms of their fitness level, and I am really impressed with the Sharks. But I'm more impressed by the Blues. That's just how I feel. Because you can't compare the Predators to Chicago or Dallas. The Predators finished 4th in that division. They were lucky to make the playoffs. They got on a bit of a hot streak towards the end of the year, and Colorado tailed off big time. Colorado just fell apart. Otherwise, Colorado's in there and Nashville's out. So, I realize Nashville finished ahead of Minnesota, but I don't think Minnesota was going to be denied. So Minnesota would have found a way to pass Nashville. But even if Colorado passes Nashville, now Nashville's stuck playing somebody else. So the playoffs could have gone completely different. It's all about how the matchups work. And, San Jose matched up pretty well with LA, and they matched up pretty well with Nashville, and St. Louis is pretty even. And I don't think there's a problem with me saying they're even. So that's my hockey opinion for tonight. fun game. If you didn't watch it, you missed one of the best games I've seen in the playoffs. Lots of goals, lots of chances, intensity. These teams really hate each other. It's really ramping up, and it's fantastic hockey.